It is said that after every golden age, an empire must go through a period of turmoil. When Empress Rayhane passed away, few, however, could predict any struggle to come forth. In 2348, the Terran Dominion ruled over a myriad of stars. Mighty armadas served the indomitable, unquestionable will of the Emperor. Wealth flowed into the coffers of the rich as the scientists continued making breakthrough after breakthrough. Truly, not even the latent psionic potential of their old rivals, the Kiramulans, could pose a threat to the Empire. However, shadows lurked inside the Korhal Palace. Emperor Quaneli Mengsk, Rayhane's cousin, was already far too ill to rule. Succession was put in question once more, and the Imperial Diet, with the Emperor's silent approval, has placed their bets on a promising scion of the Mengsk now far-reaching dynasty, young Ernesto. Deeply spiritualistic and superstitious, Emperor Quaneli placed the blame for his aunt's death squarely onto the extra-dimensional horror of the Lupus system, and the Kiramulan trickery, as he referred to it. Indeed, the psionic aliens proved to be unsettling for the Terrans as a whole, as their own psionics program has only reached limited results. After another short battle, the Dominion fleet finally drove the creature in Lupus back from whence it came, and a study was quickly conducted. The results revealed a secret far beyond the reach of anything the Terrans have seen, and work immediately began on unraveling the secrets of this technology. Some scientists, however, expressed concerns with the potential threat this study could cause. It was not impossible, they stated, that using the same methods the creature employed to arrive to our dimension, humanity could attract attention of other beings. And, as with a Lupus creature, their intentions should be assumed as hostile by default. These voices were quickly silenced, however. The scientists and their publications vanished, leaving the community at large with mere speculations and rumors. This was not, however, the end to terrifying technological discoveries the rule of Quaneli would bring. His hand was the one that sanctioned the construction of what would become known later as the Eradicator. A weapon designed and capable of destroying entire worlds in a single shot, it would serve as a tool of fear for the galaxy at large. Most of the galactic denizens recoiled in horror and disgust upon seeing news of the weapon unveiled. Many still did not believe such a feat could be achieved, for even the largest military vessels could not completely reduce a planet's surface to rubble within days, let alone a single ship with a single weapon. The loudest voice to defy the will of the Terrans as so came from the Azanti Star regime. This domain of the particularly militaristic Xenos, aligned with the malignant Panaxala plantoids, presumed itself to be in total safety. Tensions were on the rise, as border conflicts in star systems neighboring the Terran fire tribes caused an uproar at the galactic community gatherings. These tensions finally erupted in 2392, when the Greater Terran Dominion finally declared a formal war, seeking to bring the rebellious Azanti to their knees. By that time, Emperor Quaneli was already dead. while his demise at the respectable age of 129 years old could be seen as nothing out of the ordinary, especially in light of his poor health. Some historians still claim that Emperor Ernesto orchestrated his demise behind the scenes, intentionally allowing Cornelis' health to deteriorate. Such evaluations, however, came about much, much later. At the time, few would question his transition of power, especially not amidst rising tensions with Azanti. The Dominion initiated with decisive action. The fleet began by utilizing wormholes of the Tiblek Enclave, allowing immediate access to the Azanti systems. Unable to put up significant resistance, world after world succumbed to the Cybrex warform replicas, finally revealing themselves to the galaxy at large. Reports of entire platoons demolished by a single machine created panic among the entire galactic community. The rest of the empires watched in silent horror as the Azanti were picked apart piece by piece. Panaxala, themselves embroiled in a drawn-out conflict against the Kiramulans, were unable to adequately aid their ally, only sending a few smaller hunter fleets to harass the Terran fire tribes, easily pushed back. An unexpected turn of events, however, caused the Dominion to alter their plans. For the longest time, so-called freebooters of Phoenician were simply known as pirates and marauders for hire. It was far too late to react when a figure only known as the Great Khan announced itself to the galaxy. Having united the roaming warbands, he amassed a large force which he intended to lead forward to conquer, loot, and pillage. Many followed his promises of wealth and glory, and the initial intel reports suggested that his fleets would prove more than a match to the Dominion. He was able to swiftly cleave through the Azanti space, further destabilizing the area, as well as pushing far against the Athalids, nearly causing the guild's authority to collapse. Ernesto, however, would respond quickly. Utilizing the newly installed jump drives, the Dominion fleet was able to maneuver quickly around the hyperspace lanes, appearing right in front of the Great Khan's hordes. While wary of using these drives at first, admirals of the Dominion Navy came to use them more and more. At first, simply forced into it by circumstance, later, out of decadent convenience. The Great Khan's conquest ended in 2398, merely a few years after it began. Having suffered one major defeat at the hands of the Dominion, the second battle proved to be the decisive one. While undoubtedly a great naval commander, it mattered little when he was engaged by a force more than twice as powerful. Admiral Fanny Giroux later recalled in her memoirs that the fighting was so fierce and his cold, calculated rage so palpable that the star of the Xora system itself paled next to it. Despite the clear disadvantage, however, the Great Khan made no attempt to escape the battle this time. His flagship cracked into a myriad tiny pieces under the onslaught of Dominion torpedoes. The only surviving remnant of his power, the throne of the Great Khan, was later recovered and brought to Korhal, where it then served as the imperial throne for Ernesto and his successors. The Phoenician horde, now without leadership, immediately descended into infighting and anarchy, allowing itself to be mopped up by the Dominion fleet. The purge was thorough. There would be no second Great Khan, and the Emperor wanted to be sure of it. In the aftermath of this war, in spite of Azanti protests, the Terran Dominion was proclaimed the Galactic Custodian in 2403. This ensured the permanent and leading seat on the Galactic Council. Ernesto himself arrived at the momentous meeting and read the following speech, stored in the records of the community itself.
To all my fellow denizens of the galaxy, hear ye. Today, I address each and every single one of you. We are under attack. This threat is endless, constant. There are things lurking in the dark, in the shadows cast by distant stars. Things so terrible and unimaginable, so far beyond our understanding, that our only hope for survival as a community of sapient creatures is to form a united shield. And the greater Terran Dominion will be that shield. It will serve in the interest of the greater galaxy, in the interest of every single creature that can hear and understand me. Know this. Peace and stability for the galactic community are things most coveted by my heart. I harbor no doubts that under my most humble guidance, this galactic council will reach heights previously unreachable, overcome struggles previously unbreakable, destroy any and all who threaten to upset the balance so carefully created by generations of living. I, Ernesto Minsk, do not lightly accept the mantle of custodianship, as it comes with a burden so heavy that none can bear it alone. But I am certain that every single Terran soul in my dominion is behind me today. Today, I stand before you not as a single man, but as embodiment of all Terrans everywhere in the galaxy. And I implore you that you also stand with me, so together we can bring it to a new age to security. Glory to the Dominion, and glory to the galactic community.
It only took 4 years after that day for the Azanti to surrender. Their voices, previously defiant of the Greater Dominion, now joined its chorus. Even Panaxala plantoids were allowed association status in preparation of their possible integration into the Greater Terran Dominion. The Emperor's power reached far across the galaxy, but there was still a force that could contest even him and the Dominion. In 2416, the intelligence reports of Galpol finally confirmed that which the galaxy feared. Jurin Shard, an isolated and secluded remnant of an empire far older than any sentient races of the galactic community, has awakened from its slumber. The ancient shipyards began producing vast, terrible fleets. It was no longer possible for them to hide this build-up, however, and the remnant was called upon to answer and explain this development. In a shocking revelation, the Jurin envoy made a formal declaration of intent to rebuild the Empire. Now called Jurin Restorers, the previously isolationist empire all but declared a formal war against the entire galaxy. Ernesto, however, did not want to wait for them to come. The arrogant aliens threatened not only him, but also those in the Greater Dominion and the galactic community, whom he now all but assumed his direct subjects. The fleets of Dominion Armada poised themselves at the entry points near and around the Jurin space, and in 2423 they have invaded the Remnant in what will be commonly known as the Containment War. This conflict quickly proved to be far too chaotic for the Dominion. Duran fleets could easily match the Dominion ship to ship, and casualties were high, straining the supply lines and the economy. To add to this, Cybrex Warform replica armies proved unable to take over the Duran core worlds, their garrisons too large and well equipped. Infuriated, Ernesto ordered the Eradicator to move in. From the recorded entry of an unnamed Dominion officer, circa 2425.
I stared down from my post. At that point, I didn't know. I did not know how many people were down there, or how the others felt at the time. We couldn't even be sure this would work. I think everyone quietly just hoped that it would all be a bluff, a joke, a mere tool of deception by the Emperor to instill fear in the hearts and minds of... I was sure when I was assigned here that this was the case. I mean, we never did see any action during the Azanti War, did we? I mean, we were ordered to move in, but it was so late that the damn flesh-eaters sued for peace, and so we hoped. And then we arrived here. I did not see a single Duran before, but I don't know how bad they really are. Where the Eradicator, it unraveled itself above the planet. It then just hovered there. Took hours to completely set up. I don't have the slightest clue of what the Edheads put in that thing, but I think we all realized it wasn't just for show when the device started activating and charging up. Arcs of lightning shot from the spinning petals of the deadly flower. In the magnetic field generator, it held some sort of light in the middle. It charged up slowly, getting brighter and brighter. We all stood there in silence, as if entranced by it. The only voice I remember came from the communications officer. He monotonously declared different scripted messages, describing stages of Eradicator deployment. And then... oh god. And then we unleashed it. We looked down to the surface. We couldn't hear anything, but I tried to imagine what was happening down there on the surface. All I could think of, though, was the words I remembered from a really, really old history book about Earth. I am become death, destroyer of worlds. But I did not feel like death. I just felt like a butcher.
The Containment War, initially a difficult ordeal, turned in the Dominion's favor. World after world fell to the Eradicator, fleet after fleet destroyed by the Dominion Armada. Ernesto watched over the grand planet city of Korhal from the safety of his throne room. The year was 2427.
My liege,
A messenger rushed into the room out of breath. Falling on his knees, he cried out,
my liege, we are under attack. The Ackbar system, it's no more. Umojo is under direct threat, and is requesting aid.
As the royal guard quickly apprehended the man, Ernesto turned around.
The Duran? Impossible. They couldn't have arrived so quickly, and so close to the core sector, no less. You lie. Take him.
No, the attackers aren't Duran,
the messenger pleaded. The Emperor could not believe it. However, the report was soon confirmed by his own intelligence. Ackbar system was no more. Ernesto remembered a scientist's plea to investigate a power surge somewhere in the galaxy. Without a point of origin, he deemed it fruitless then. Besides, what could be more important than a galactic threat the Duran posed? But now, through the rift in space itself, they came. Creatures of outer void, numberless, without forms, of pure ethereal energy. They were nicknamed the Unbidden, a signal intercepted by the listening post, quickly interpreted by the intelligence agency. Within days, before the Dominion fleet could even react, the uninvited guests spilled forth. Taking Ernesto and everyone else by complete surprise, they spread quickly like fire. Mazathim, Umoja, Char, everything in the vicinity, lost nearly immediately, panic spreading across the populace at large. On an emergency meeting of the galactic community, Ernesto, in a remote video call, urged the galaxy to unite to repel the threat of the Unbidden, but those cries fell on deaf ears. Kiramulans were tired out after the Panaxalan War, albeit successful, but completely drained. The subservience of the Greater Terran Dominion could not muster a fleet, even a fraction of the power of these aliens. Azanti, just recently destroyed by the Dominion itself, and the Terran Fire tribes, still not able to fully recover. Klen, the neighbors of the Dominion and the nearest to the Rift, sent their fleets to the rescue, only to be completely and effortlessly dispatched by the aliens. Panic reached Ernesto's mind. He finally could not resist it, and, together with the trillions of souls in Korhal, cried out in despair. By the time the Dominion Armada arrived to the Caprul sector, it was already far too late. Like cancer, the Unbidden spread, utilizing the convenient location of their rift and a neighboring Mezathim wormhole to expand into Tiblik Enclave and Thor. Grim, ethereal space stations followed in the wake of the conquest, and they destroyed everything with ravenous rage. The Tiyanki were among the first unfortunate victims of the Unbidden, but not the last. In an ironic twist of fate, Umoja Prime was the first world to finally receive the treatment of enigmatic invaders. These ethereal beings descended upon the world, their hunger endless and strength immeasurable. In their rush to save the Dominion, the fleet made one fatal error. This lapse of judgment would later prove to have cost the Empire everything. Strike Force Titan, far too eager to repel the invaders, arrived at the Mezathim system first, while the rest of the Armada was still in flight. By the time the reinforcements came, the Unbidden fleet, far superior in strength, overwhelmed Titan, destroying it in its majority and forcing the rest in retreat. While ultimately the first battle of Mezathim was a victory, the Dominion took too many losses. The fleet would never recover to its full strength. The rest of the Armada, battered and bruised, had to utilize their jump drives to swiftly arrive to Korhal and attempt to relieve it of any potential siege. At this time, Ma'asara, one of the 3 core systems and the main shipyard citadels, was lost. News of this defeat came to the capital just as the invaders themselves successfully completed the hyperspace jump to the system. Still not fully recovered and missing Strike Force Titan, the Dominion fleet, once vast and numberless, suffered yet another massive defeat. The Korhal shipyards were lost, leaving just Tarsonis and the half-completed mega shipyards of Korhal mysteriously left alone by the Unbidden to cope with an arduous task of rebuilding the Armada. Thus, having dealt with the strongest potential threat, the otherworldly invaders rampaged across the Terran Dominion. System after system fell, expanding the ever-growing network of enigmatic space fortifications. The anchors, as the Dominion scientists referred to them, across much of the known galaxy. Even the strongest star fortresses were reduced to rubble, as the aliens seemingly concentrated their efforts entirely on eliminating the Terrans. Ernesto, however, refused to give up. A dark change began occurring in him. His normally confident self shifted, transforming into delusions of grandeur. The title of custodian no longer suited his needs. Yes, the entire galaxy was the Dominion. Still holding power and influence, the diplomats of Terran Dominion were set to work on a project of a truly massive scale. The Galactic Imperium. The war with Unbidden took second place to Ernesto's growing desire for power. He needed to be recognized as the rightful galactic sovereign. Others will show respect, they will comply, and through his will, they will come to save them from the Unbidden. The reality, however, was as far as it could get from the vision Ernesto made for himself. In truth, the Terran Dominion was collapsing. Loss of key mining worlds, Umoja and Borea, resulted in a massive resource shortage across the Dominion. The economic situation grew increasingly dire. Monthly energy and mineral deficit caused a steady dwindling of supplies. The Dominion was forced into constant sales of minor alien artifacts from the Korhal treasury, as well as rare resources, ship alloys, and food. This could not be sustained for long, however, as the losses were too great. At this point, Ernesto's lust for power finally got the best of him. And although his exact date of death is lost to time, it is probably for the best that his last days are hidden from us. The excesses his broken mind must have come through in these terrible years for the Empire could not be put to proper words. His heiress, Empress Kenewe, inherited an empire in tatters. However, all was seemingly not lost. For as long as the world of Korhal remained under Imperial control, the war could resume. Korhal's factories produced an immense amount of alloys on their own, despite the massive shortages of minerals. And the mega shipyard, hastily completed during the war, continuously spewed up ship after ship after ship for the fleet. It, however, could not compare with the rate at which the invaders poured through the rift in space. World after world after world consumed by their endless hordes, while the other galactic empires stood idly by, unable to stop the coming advance. Duran, once mortal enemies of the Terran Dominion, now referred to as the Imperial Corps, now aided in the common effort to stop the advancing extra-dimensionals, but even their fleets could only just match the terrible threat. Despite a few brave and valiant efforts at reclaiming swaths of Dominion space, the damage was already done. Unable to sustain itself, the economy finally broke down. Unrest and chaos spread where peace previously reigned. Conflicting orders came from all directions. Buy, sell, trade, build, demolish, attack, defend. The truly monumental bureaucratic machine, once carefully maintained and catered to by armies of trained specialists from Tarsonis and Mars Sara, now crumbled under its own Byzantine weight. In 2459, another massive horde of Unbidden found its way to Core Hull. The Dominion fleet, at this moment suffering from yet another setback, was taken by surprise. In the chaos of battle, the massive Juggernaut-class vessel, a moving shipyard of its own, the mighty flagship of the Armada, Cataclysm, finally met its demise, as it was unable to commit an FTL emergency jump on time. The flaming wreckage crashed down in front of the star, and aliens finally laid siege to the world itself. Its trillions of inhabitants cried out once more, this time in fear, as the alien armada positioned itself in high orbit. They were not yet aware that they have been betrayed by their own Empress. Kenowe, at this time already far away from Core Hull, has condemned the people of her home world to a fate not unlike one that already befell it ages ago. Once upon a time, the planet was already destroyed by a barrage of nuclear missiles, only to recover and rise again from the ashes under Arcturus Mengsk. Kenowe, seeking now to follow in the steps of her ancestor, ordered the planetary shields to be lowered before she escaped, arriving at Ashik and setting up an intermediary court there. The planet's inhabitants were destined for oblivion. It took 3 long, grueling years for the aliens to consume every last Terran on the planet. Of the myriad souls who once stood proud and tall in the planet-sized city, none escaped the terrible fate. Parents were torn apart to ribbons in front of their children, loved ones separated forever. So many stories yet untold met with an abrupt and gory end. Blood flooded the streets, where it was atomized and consumed by the horrifying phantoms from beyond. Great industries churning out thousands of alloys reduced to rubble. Monuments to Terran greatness gone, turned to dust. Even the air itself was not spared by the invaders. Just as with every single world before this, Core Hull was left by them a barren, lifeless rock, a graveyard for billions. The Ashik court proved to be rather short-lived. The Empress retreated once more, as the system proved too unstable and poorly defended. This time she would set her sights on the former Cybrex home system, a ring world now commonly known as the Citadel. This would become the new seat of the Imperial power. However, this was merely a shade of the past. Without Core Hull and its shipyards, the Dominion could not hope to muster a force strong enough to even project its interests in their own territory. And the power of Kenowe went only as far as her palace. Delusions that plagued her predecessor have started to torment her as well. The galaxy watched in silence as nonsensical decrees arrived almost every other year. Formation of the Imperial Armada, the Imperial Legions. Her death in 2502 did little to change the state of affairs. The Terran society has deteriorated. The bureaucracy could no longer hold, and it crashed and burned under the weight of a myriad decrees. Collapse of trade relations and loss of contact across the star systems resulted in seclusion, and many planetary governors slowly turned their worlds into nearly feudalistic realms, some even going as far as proclaiming themselves kings, with the Emperor still referred to as the King of Kings, of course, for now. Not that he could intervene. The Dominion fleet was reduced to a single battleship. The armies were gone, and the entire Imperial Corps held on barely by the thread of the Citadel's defenses. An attempt, however, was made to reorganize the dying empire, while the Unbidden unexpectedly gave the Imperial Corps room to breathe. Mines and generators were erected across the remaining few worlds, while the Citadel itself became repurposed into a refining facility. These efforts, however, must have drawn further attention from the aliens, as if summoning them forth. With the last few worlds extinguished one by one like candles in the dark, all that remained for the new Emperor, Xavier I Mengsk, was to wait, slowly being claimed by the madness that already killed Kanewe and Ernesto. Emperor Xavier reigned for only 5 years. He was not able to miraculously bring the Dominion back from the brink. Korhal would never be revived as a phoenix, as it did once in the past. The aliens continued to claim worlds and systems until only one remained. The Citadel defenses proved to be just as ethereal as the aliens that came to destroy them, as they did not even put a dent in their overwhelming force. Section after section, slowly, as if to taunt and torment the dying Terrans, the Unbidden consumed and ravaged everything in their path. This time the rings would be shattered so utterly, picked apart so cleanly, like bones, that no amount of repair could bring them back. As the Emperor watched over the grand planet city of the Citadel from the supposed safety of his throne room, it was year 2507. It would be remembered as the last year, if there was anyone left to remember. As the fighting reached the palace, he did not care. The sounds of his bodyguards being ripped to shreds by terrifying, ghostly forms of the invaders did little to move his darkened, frozen heart. His last will to the Galactic Imperium was the declaration of Pax Galactica, a declaration which, almost insulting in its mockery of the real state of the galaxy, stated that the Imperium will remain serene and peaceful forevermore. At this point, however, there was no one left who would listen to the dying Emperor's decrees. The Dominion's weight in the galactic politics was so little that none of the recent proclamations would even be recorded. Not a single soldier would ever be recruited in the Imperial legions. Not a single ship was constructed to be a part of the Imperial Armada. No one wanted to save the Empire. Thus, when the Citadel finally fell silent, and the screams finally ended, officially signifying the end of Terran dominion, the galactic community re-emerged, its members perhaps starting to become just as delusional as the late Emperor himself. Without the Dominion, the story of this galaxy ends in empty nothingness as the unbidden claim in its entirety, slowly but surely, every single living soul. The agonizing death of the galaxy would take centuries, but it would be inevitable. There was once a dream of Kohal, a dream of the Terran Dominion, and it was no more.